Hey Internet, so bass tip number 2 has to do with right hand dynamics. And bass tip number 1, if you haven't watched it, look for a link. If not, click on my channel and then find the link. Bass tip number 1 had to do with the right hand and relaxing, not overstretching it. Now we're going for the plucking hand. So our right hand dynamics. What I mean by dynamics, I mean having control over how loud you pluck, okay, and reserving headroom to be able to poke out with a loud note whenever we need to. Now we're not going to be able to do that if we pluck as hard as we can throughout the whole song. We won't have headroom to be able to poke out. Like, what if we want to bring an accent into it? Another good reason for that is tone, which, you know, if you're looking for that distressed string tone, I'm not going to argue with you, but tone-wise, we have a lot more low end when we let the string breathe and we don't overstress it. That's the difference between this D right here and this D. Yeah, one might be louder than the other, but when you let the string breathe, you get a nice fuller sound, which is, you know, I'm not going to argue if you're looking for that. This tone, pluck hard all day. As for the volume wise, yes, of course, plucking harder will give you more volume, unless you just turn up your amp and play softer. So if you have a hard time hearing yourself at the gig, even if you practice at an, you know, if you practice with good dynamics and, you know, reserve some headroom when you practice or when you're in the recording studio, but it doesn't translate to, you know, every time you find yourself with a drummer in a live situation, you find yourself plucking harder. Turn your amp up. Turn your amp up too loud. That's my advice to you. Bass tip number 2, turn your amp up a little too loud. Force yourself to fall back and play lighter. Okay? Especially if you're running to front of house. The front of house engineer would only make you, it will make you as loud as he needs to. So if you give him a loud signal, he'll turn it down. If you give him a light signal, he'll turn you up. So don't worry about it. If you're plucking light, it doesn't mean that it's going to translate to a weak bass up front. As a matter of fact, it will give you more low end. It will give the sound engineer more low end to work with, and give you a fuller sound up front. So practice. For practice, start off with one note. Okay, one note at a time. You can have different rhythms. Make sure that you pluck at a level that you can go back from, you know, and play lighter than your normal tones, and make sure that level is also not as hard as you can. So find a middle ground, what's comfortable for you. After you master this, like just one note, you can start with your favorite bass line, or right. But it's very important after that you'll be able to cross strings. So practicing in thirds, right? It's very good for crossing strings, but make sure that if one of your strings is not as loud as the other ones, learn it, adapt to it, be able to pluck a tiny bit louder on those weaker strings. This one never had a problem with, but with some bass guitars, they have dead spots, or they have some strings are not as loud as the other. Playing with headroom gives you the advantage that you're able to compensate for a bass that is not set up like that. Thank you. This is bass tip number 2. Turn your amp up too loud.